Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In the last game, Kaiwen won against Toramaru Shibano, and today he is facing a very strong Korean player, Sungjoon. Sungjoon is also a 9-dan professional. So Kaiwen is playing as white in this game, and the game starts out like this. Sungjoon decides to enclose the corner, and white does the same. Black encloses another corner, and white decides to come in and deal with black's moyo by splitting moyo. Here black approaches, and white also approaches black's corner. Black plays the 4-4, that's a very standard joseki against the 3-3 opening. White crawls, black extends, and white turns. Black plays the jump, this is all book moves, and white now decides to jump out. Of course, the book move is also, one of the book moves also for white to extend, and black plays the keima. Right? This is totally influence versus territory. White chose a different line. This allows black to play the tiger's mouth to try to enclose the right side. And the next move, white plays a very unconventional peep over here. Here, if black blocks, then white will hane and then play out the 3-space extension. This is looking at two very good points. The first one is another 2-space extension, not only extend white, but also trying to attack black. So for example, if black decides to attack the two stones, then white can go for the attack on the left side. If black decides to protect the left side, then white can now connect, and we can see that this formation is very nice for white. In the actual game, black decides to block on top, white plays the jump, and here black decides temporarily to nuki. What I would recommend to my viewers at this point is to play the pincer, because it's very intuitive and very easy to understand. White likely is going to play the tiger's mouth, and here we can just turn. I personally like this position as black, and I think it's pretty easy to manage because we're trying to attack white. But of course, because white has a tiger's mouth, white does have a lot of eye space, and this is still equal position. Sungjoon decided to go for aggression. He invades over here, trying to split the two stones. White attach, and black plays the tiger's mouth. White extends, and here black decides to invade again. The reason black does not play the second line extension is because on this side it's not enclosed, so white can later on come in. So you didn't really enclose a big chunk of territory with your second line extension, which makes this move very inefficient. Black plays the invasion. We can see that black is playing very aggressive and very proactive in this game. White hane, black extends, and white crawls. Here black has to hane at the 2-2 because this is about the base for both groups. Right? With this move, black secures the base and gets rid of the white's base. So even if it's on a second line, it's still a very important move to play. Here, Kaiwen has a very tough problem to deal with. Right? So we can see that if white lets black cut off on this line, then white has two very weak groups to deal with. So white immediately attach on top. This is a very common technique to connect back home. Black plays the hane, and white plays the second line attach. If white cuts over here, which is a move that I think a lot of my viewers would play, the problem is black can actually atari. When white plays the atari, black captures, and white adds another move. We can see that black gained a panuki in sente, and now black can actually pincer here. And this is extremely difficult for white to deal with. Because black is extremely thick over here, these guys are in trouble, basically. So how you deal with this actually makes a huge difference. In the actual game, white directly attach, which is something we can learn from white. This doesn't give black a lot of thickness, and therefore your stones are a lot safer. Black atari on top, and white decides to temporarily tanuki. Of course, tanuki is very nice, but of course there are later on tactics for black, right, to try to punish white, which we will see later on in the game. White peeps, and black turns over here. If black simply connects, black didn't like this because black thought this was a favorable exchange for white. White can now play very light and just make a base over here. And we can see this exchange seems to be favorable for white. Sungjoon decided to counterattack. White now cuts. Another very interesting variation is for white to pull the stone back, still aiming at the cut. Black now has to connect. White plays the tiger's mouth, forming a very nice shape. But here, black can start the fight, right, by Hane here. White cuts, black takes, and here white has to go for the ko. White cannot really avoid the ko by pulling the stone back, because black pulls the stone back. Not only these guys are dead, and these guys are also in trouble. So white doesn't have a choice. White has to Atari. Black Atari, white takes, and here black can go for the ko threat on the left. White connects, and black pierces through white's formation. And we can see that black gained a lot of profits on the left side, and white has to get the compensation back by attacking black's group over here, which is not an easy task. So Yang Kaiwen was definitely worried about this variation, and therefore he decided to simply cut over here. Black pushes through, and white plays the 3-space high extension to get his group safe. Black now attach on the top left. White plays the tiger's mouth, and black pulls the stone back. And here it's a very nice shape that we should learn from white. The next move is a very nice move. A textbook shape move is for white to play the diamond shape. Here the wrong shape to play is to extend, because when you extend, it still doesn't fix the fact that it's not enclosed here. So black can turn, and if white plays the Hane, then black can Hane and then push. And then at this point, black can go into the corner. White connects, black pulls the stone back, and we can see that white isn't doing much, right? All the stones are very inefficient. Black gets the influence, and black also gets some territory. So this is very awkward for white. So probably at this point, white needs to enclose the territory like this, and black has a very beautiful move, right? Whenever you play this type of shape, it's very pleasant to see. It's definitely not a position that white wants to get into. So the shape move is for white to play the diamond, right? It forms a lot of tiger's mouth and also protects the corner. Black still needs to turn. White Hane, black Hanes, and white extends. Black pushes on top. White peeps first and then extend. And here black push once again. And at this point, Yang Kaiwen decides to Tanuki. The accurate move is actually for white to extend out. Right? This would be the accurate move at this point, because the extension is still very huge, because it's putting a lot of pressure on the black stone over here. And when black gets to Hane here, black controls the outside, right? The influence. If white extends, obviously Yang Kaiwen was worried about something like this, where black is going to secure all the territory on top. But in that case, white is not really in trouble, because white can also push over here, putting pressure on black and also build on top. So black has to invade here while watching the safety of this group, which is not an easy task. So this would still be an equal position, and white doesn't really have to worry about it. In the actual game, Yang Kaiwen decides to play something that he understands by playing more efficient and faster. Black crawls, white jumps, and here black comes back to play the Keima. This shows you that Sungjoon has a great understanding of this game. This move achieves many things. First of all, is strengthening the 4 stones on the bottom. Second, this is also trying to support his stone over here, right? This is forming some sort of connection. And third, because black is stronger here, this group becomes a lot weaker. So for example, if white plays some sort of move here, then black is going to slide on the second line, trying to destroy white's eye space and let white run towards the center. As white run towards the center, then black can cut off the center and try to attack the top and the bottom at the same time. So that is a very long-term planning that we can see from black's move over here. Of course, white prevents black from coming, with this move. White is not only counterattacking black, but also preventing the stuff I was talking about. Black extends down, and white has to play a Kosumi. Otherwise, there's going to be push and cut. So white plays the Kosumi, black presses white, and white crawls. And at this point, Sungjoon decides to come back and start an attack on these 3 stones. This is a very good point of attack, right? Because it's really blocking the exit. It's making it very difficult for white to come out. White plays the tiger's mouth, the shape move, and here black takes the eye space away from white. White attaches onto black, and black Hane. White blocks, and at this point, instead of directly attacking, Sungjoon decided to use this concept of trying to attack another group. Depending on what happens over here, then he's going to decide how to attack the group over here. So at this point, Yang Kaiwen didn't want to answer this, because if white cuts, black takes, white Atari, and the black can start a ko. When white takes, here black can connect over here as a co-threat. If white connects, then black can also cut over here, and we can see that white is broken into pieces. This is quite a serious co-threat to compensate for white got over here. So Yang Kaiwen does not want to follow An Sungjoon's idea. Instead, he plays another move trying to secure the center. Black extends, and now white needs to deal with the lonely stone over here, trying to pressure black's corner. Black honey, white clamps, and black decides to counterattack. This is a must-play move. If black plays connect, that would be too passive, and that's not a very professional move, because when white plays the honey here, white's shape is too strong and too perfect. So black doesn't care about the territory here. Black has to counterattack. White pushes through, and black connects. White extends onto the second line, and at this point, black comes back and claims the profit over here, breaking white into pieces. And moreover, this is a sente, because white has to live in the corner. White Atari making sure his corner is alive. And here, black turns. It's a very good move, aiming at the push, and also just completely killing the two stones over here. White plays the Kosumi, and black Atari in the center. White connects, and here black extends the stone out, further strengthen the territory on the right side. And also looking at the push through. White defends the push with blocking on top. Well, this move doesn't really defend it, right, from a tactical point of view, because black can still push through. But white can get the compensation by honey on top. When black connects, white also connects, and these two stones are just dead. Black cannot run. If black runs, then white can just capture them. When you Atari on top, I'll just connect. When you keep pushing, I can extend. When you connect, I can also extend on the second line to extend the liberties. When you block, then I can honey connect, and we can see that this is going to be white kills black. So this is why black doesn't push through, because he's going to pay a heavy price in the center. Black decides to extend out, which makes a lot of sense, and here white also fixes the weakness. Black connects, and here white jumps towards the center, right? So black connection cuts off the two groups, and white obviously has to save the 4 stones by playing the shape move right beside the Tengen. So until this point, both players have played very accurately, and the game has just been completely equal. Every single move made a lot of sense for both players, and I think this is an extremely, very, very high quality game at this point, right? Just because how accurate both players are. And I was very impressed looking at this game. So the game at this point is completely equal. And the reason it's completely equal is white has a lot of territory, and black has a lot of influence and thickness. Now, because white has a lot of territory, what black has in compensation is the weaknesses that white has. This group is not completely alive on the bottom, and the group in the center is obviously very weak. So black's idea now is to try to cut off the line over here, and then attack the group on top and on the bottom. So it's going to be difficult for both players, because white has to play very carefully so that he doesn't get any group into trouble. But black also has to attack very precisely to make sure he can gain enough compensation through the attack to come back in terms of territory. Black now cut off white's connection in the center. That's the correct move to play. White now jumps, strengthen the group on top. And here, black plays the honey. I really like this move. It's a very precise move. The reason this is a really good move is because it has a lot of value. First of all, it shrinks white's corner, and it saves the stone over here. Second, it cuts off the exit in this direction, so white can never connect home to the corner. And a lot of times, this is what we need to learn from professionals, because see, I see a lot of viewers when people are playing online. What happens is they find a group and they just keep attacking it, and they lost patience. They think they have to kill in order to win the game, but that's just not the truth. Because when you play a honey like this, it's a very slow attack. And often what you will see is that when your opponent has a weak group, he cannot make that group alive, or he cannot make that group safe in one move. So why do you rush to kill it? To be a great attacker in the game of Go requires a lot of patience. A lot of times, it seems our moves are not really attacking White, but it's putting a lot of pressure on White. Because we are behind in territory, but with this move, we're slowly coming back in terms of territory. So White cannot afford to just dance in the center with no points. Even if we're not putting pressure on White's group, we're putting pressure on our opponent because we're telling our opponent that we're slowly coming back in terms of territory. And this is a very advanced form of attack. Of course, this advanced concept is going to take a lot of time to appreciate, but I'm pretty sure as you level up, you'll start to really appreciate this idea. All right, so at this point, White decides to play another move to try to strengthen the center. As we can see, this is already showing the value of Black's attack. Black has a very valuable move over here that saves the stone over here, so that means it's a lot of territory. But White's move doesn't have as much territory as the move over here. So that's already meaning that, Black is catching up in terms of territory. And this is exactly the type of value we get if we attack properly. Now, White's move over here is also aiming at the weaknesses that Black has over here. So it's a very good move by Kaiwen. So instead of dealing with the weaknesses right now, Black decides to attack the group on the bottom. If the group tries to run and try to connect with the White's group in the center, then Black can use that opportunity to cut off the two groups. White bumps into Black, Black extends White Hane, and Black crawls the stone back. And here White has to jump towards the center. Once again, we can see the value from attack. We silently gained a few points by crawling the stone back, and White has to play these moves to kind of secure the center. Right? This move doesn't have enough as much value as what we have here. Right? Maybe White lost like 1 or 2 points with this exchange. And it's through these exchanges that we're slowly coming back in terms of territory as the attacker. Now, of course, that's not enough, right? Black has to keep pressuring White. So Sungjoon plays a very aggressive move, try to squeeze White's ice base. White attaches on top, and Black peeps at White. And at this point, Kaiwen decides to go for a very greedy play. He decides to just live on the right side. Black pushes through, White Hane, and Black now cuts. And White now plays the Atari on the second line. Now, the reading inside, this area is very accurate from both players, right? White can definitely live here, and let's see why. Black Atari in the center, White runs, and now Black turns. White Atari, Black connects, and here White plays the Kosumi to connect back. And at this point, Black tries to squeeze White, right? Black knows that White can live in here, so this move is just trying to get some points. White now squeeze Black. Black pushes, White connects, and now Black connects. White now blocks. Black crawls, and White connects. Black pulls the stone back, and here White just captured the stone. And White is a clean alive. Because if Black tries to kill, then White can block. When you try to pull the stone back, I can squeeze. And then we all know the Tsuji is for us to throw in. When Black captures, we can Atari from behind. Now because of the cutting point, Black cannot connect. So White is clean alive. And of course, this amount of reading is very easy for both players. All right, so in the actual game, they did play out all of these. But at this point, Black obviously didn't go for the kill because that's obviously not going to work. So Black plays the Tiger's Mouth, and that's a Sente. And the next move is really something we should learn from White. Right? Instead, a lot of my viewers might just play something like this, right? But this is a very obvious mistake when you reach a low dan to mid dan level, right? You know this is too passive. White's move is obviously better. It has more points, and it's a very good way to save your group. Because now if Black peeps in, then we can block, right? We're looking at connecting back, and we're looking at killing your stone. So there's no way to kill White here. This is the very good move to fix your group. Black now comes in, breaking White's ice base. White plays the Kosumi, and Black also plays out the Kosumi to cut off the connection. Black can absolutely not allow these two groups to connect, right? If White ever managed to connect, then Black is never going to catch up in terms of the territory. So you have to make sure White is under attack. Black peeps, white plays the counter attack, trying to cut off the 2 stones here. Here, Sungjoon played very well, I think, and answering the counter attack over here. Black blocks, and white now pushes. Black exchange a move, that's a sente, white has to live. And here, when black extends, white also blocks. So here, white managed to take, basically, just capture the 2 stones and gain a lot of territory. But of course, as a consequence, the group in the center is becoming, it's very dangerous for, you pretty much have to sacrifice them at some point. Black plays the Kosumi, white pushes through, and black plays the tiger's mouth. White cuts, black honey, white Atari, and now black blocks over here. When white takes, black now connects here. We can see Yang Kaiwen's idea was really just to capture as many points as possible before sacrificing the group in the center. And at this point, Yang Kaiwen follows up with the idea, because he knows running this group would be very, very dangerous, because black is already so thick. So white just decides to go for a sacrifice, which I think is what makes this game such a historical game, right? This game will be remembered for a long time because of Yang Kaiwen's play, right? Just sacrificing a giant group in the center, and then he still knows that he's not behind, right? Just the fact that he knows that is very impressive, right? Especially in a tournament like this, which is very important. And the next move, Sungjoon played the double honey. So until this point, still, both players played extremely well, extremely high quality. There's no mistake made so far, right? It's very rare for me to say this, but this late to the game, nobody has made a single mistake, right? Every move has made a lot of sense, very well played, following the principles, proper play by both sides, super high quality. I'm just very pleased. It's very pleasant to see such a game at such a high quality. And the next move, it's not Sungjoon's fault, right? The next move is his losing move, but it's a move that most high dan level player or professional player would probably have played. Black plays the double honey, right? It doesn't look like a losing move, right? Because it looks like a very good move. It pressures white's formation, and it's the shape move to play, right? If you're a mid dan to high dan to professional level, you would definitely play the double honey. It's just our first intuition. But here, the correct move is for black to extend out. It's very counterintuitive, right? How can this be a good move? The reason this is a good move is that it's a gote that has a lot of value. When black simply extends, it's almost like gathering more strength for the honey later. If white pushes, then we can honey. And because we have extended first, we have gathered more strength. And then we played honey, it's very powerful. And that's the idea. It's almost like when you're playing, when you're doing, boxing, right? You try to pull your fist back so you can punch harder. And that's exactly what the idea behind the extension is. But it's almost impossible for a human being to play such a move. It's just very counterintuitive. Let's see what happens, right? If black extends like this, amazingly, this is going to be a 0.5 point game, right? This is how close the game is because nobody has made a mistake. Here, white has to answer quite carefully, right? If white just blocks here, then black is going to play honey. Now, if white honey, right, trying to enclose as much as possible, then there's going to be a problem inside the territory. Black is going to cut here, and white has a lot of liberty issues. If white Atari, black will extend. White pushes, black blocks, and white Atari, black will turn. Here Atari, then black will just capture. And at this point, white probably needs, white definitely has to add another move to fix the problem. So we can see that black managed to capture white's center in a very efficient way, right? And white only got the territory like here, plus all the second line points. This is not very acceptable for white. If white plays the jump, then we can cut. And white has to be very careful. If white plays the tiger's mouth, then we can honey first, and then Atari. White has to connect, and there we can throw in. White takes, and then all of a sudden we have a very nasty problem. Black is going to Atari here, right? And this is very dangerous for white. White has to fight a ko, but obviously black's going to find a ko threat and take back, forcing you to connect. Then the same for this, right? I can Atari, right? Then I'll fight you here. Probably you'll have to back down. And then the same for this one, right? You still have to back down. All of a sudden, black plays this, and this becomes a demon inside. And this is a very scary demon, right, for white. So this would mean white is like kind of in trouble. So white has to be very careful because of the shape problems. And that's the power of you extending first and then hane. Now let's see what happened in the game. When black plays the double hane, it looks very powerful at first. But then when white Atari, and then push, all of a sudden we can see white somehow managed to enclose a lot of points here. Black extends, white pushes, black blocks, and all of a sudden white managed to block here and claim this whole chunk of territory. And that's why double hane was a losing move, because white can just play like this in the most brutal way and enclose a bunch of points. So at this point, Sungjoon is definitely falling behind. Now they're going into the endgame. Black Atari, white Atari, and black extends. That's a very big endgame. But more importantly, white has to defend that. So white blocks. And here black extends in the center. That's a sente. And black now comes back and block. Not only is a lot of territory, but it's also looking at the aji inside this group. White now connects. Here, if black tries to kill, this is not going to work because white can first push in. This is already a lot of territory loss for black. If black protects the well, that's a sente because I'm looking at the tiger's mouth. So black has to connect the 2 stones back. And at this point, white will simply extend on the first line. And there's no way for black to kill. Black's best way to kill is to block on the outside. But white now can simply attach on the first line. And this is a clean alive for black. If black squeeze like this, we all know this is this is a very obvious clean alive, right? It's a bend 4 shape. If black plays the Atari, then white lived in gote, right? This is a white lived in sente. This is a gote for black, right? White is already alive. Now the reason white is already alive is because if you take, then I can squeeze from behind. I'm looking at the Atari here, right? If you pull the stone back, I can Atari from behind. So white is alive. And the same if you pull the stone back, right? It will lead to the same, connect and die. So yeah, white has no life and death issues, so black cannot really kill. In the actual game, black plays the hane, white blocks, and Sungjoon knows that he's behind, right? After the judgment on the board, he's like, oh, how come I'm behind? And now he's going crazy. He plays the first line hane to try to stir up some chaos. White Atari, black plays the ko, white takes, and here black uses a ko threat and take back. And at this point, Kaiwen has made a precise count on the board, and in a very brilliant way, he decides to just extend because he knows even if he extends, this would be a winning game. Black blocks, and white now turns. The reason white doesn't fight this ko is because black has too many ko threats. So instead of trying to fight here, white just turn over here, right, to make this group having more territory. Black blocks, that's extente. Black is looking at the extension, white captures, and here black knows that he can't hold this forever, so he has to capture this. And at this point, white Atari, black connects, and white pushes. This is all sente. White now comes into black's territory. Black plays the monkey jump, and white now pulls the stone out. Black cuts, and white plays the tiger's mouth. The cut over here is a time suji, but at this point, black has to be careful, right? You might be wondering what was white doing here, and if you're not careful, you could easily fall apart. For example, if black takes another endgame, then white is going to play a kosumi here, right? All of a sudden, there's a lot of aji. So if black blocks, here white can go for the kill. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, black is just dead. Black Atari, then white will just pull the stone back. You Atari, I'll just connect. And you connect, then I can Atari here. Thanks to my stone over here, you cannot fill in here, right? Because you only have 2 liberties. And of course, if Atari here, then I connect, right? It's a clean dead. There's no ko. So Sungjoon has to be very careful here, right? He can't just play whatever he wants. He decides to push here, which is a correct move to play. And here white squeeze over here. This is looking at the Atari, right? If black plays somewhere else, then white can Atari in the center and then connect, right? Because black is not alive here, then black has to extend at the 1-2. But then if white adds another move, good luck killing it, right? If white plays over here, this is a very tough life and death problem. Likely white's gonna live in here. All right, so full of traps. Sungjoon is answering correctly. He extends at the 1-2. And white now comes back and kick. Black plays a time Suji, white Atari, and here black pushes over here, right? Trying to capture the stone, obviously white has to connect. Black plays the shape move to protect, otherwise white is going to clamp. That's a lot of points. So black has to answer that, and white now captures the stone at a 1-2. Black crawls into the corner, and white pushes. Black blocks, and here white connects. That's a very big move. Black turns, white connects, and they're playing out the end games. So black Hane, white turns. That's a must play move. Here black cannot play a Tsuji like this because white can simply answer. If you connect, then I can Atari, and black cannot connect home. Black push here. That's a Sente, and then black connects. White also plays here. This is looking at the Aji. So black Atari and then block over here, trying to mitigate the Aji in here. And at this point, white plays the Ascente here. Black has to answer. And at this point, white cuts. Black connects. White also connects in the center. It looks like white is trying to live, but actually white cannot live at all. So black Atari, white connects, and black runs out. This move definitely kills white. If white tries to live, then black can simply peep here, and then white cannot live inside. In the actual game, white cuts, and black also cut the stone off. And at this point, all of a sudden, white plays a peep inside black's territory. And at this point, Sungjoon decided to resign. I think this is a perfect moment for black to resign. It's a very respectful way of resigning as well. Now, the reason black resigned is because black simply does not have enough territory. Black is just behind in territory. Not because that, this move somehow magically revived the group in the center. Now, this is a very brilliant Tsuji. The best way for black to defend is to make the tiger's mouth here. But if black makes the tiger's mouth, then white can cut. When black Atari, then white will squeeze Atari, and then Atari once again. And we can see that, well, we can't see it right now, but I'm telling you that this is a 1 point gain for white. Now, why is this a one point gain for white? Let's check. So without playing the Tsuji, if white just squeeze, then black is going to connect. So let's remember black has 1, 2, 3, 4 points, right? So let's look at these 4 points. Just try to remember in your head. When white peeps in here, black blocks, and then white cuts, black Atari, and here white Atari and Atari. We can see that this is 1 point, and black got 2 captures, so it's 3 points. So instead of 4 points, we used to have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in this area, black only has 3 points. So with this maneuver, black lost 1 point for free. And 1 point means a lot for professionals. But of course, black is just lost, right? Even without this Tsuji. What if black resists, right? What if black tries to say, hey, you die in here? But then that will lead to a very big disaster because now white can cut. If black Atari, well, black has to Atari, otherwise white's going to Atari. So black needs the Atari, and then white can simply block here. And the group in the center just revived. If black tries to kill in this way, then white is going to Atari and Atari. And at this point, white can simply make the tiger's mouth. And we can see that there's no way to kill. You have to get rid of this eye, but I can make 2 eyes this way. What about black peeps in here? If black peeps in the center, then white's going to Atari and then block. We can see that there's no way for black to get out. And therefore, there's going to be 2 eyes. So that would be terrible, right? Because white just revived the center. So at this point, with this beautiful Tsuji, Yang Kaiwen won this game. I really love this game because it's just a different quality, right? I haven't seen such a high quality game probably this year, right? Like you're telling me like first 150 moves without a single mistake. That is just crazy performance by both sides. Both players have shown extremely high, high level of play, and it was very impressive. And the only reason that An Sung-joon lost was because the double hane, which is the human intuition, and I find it to be really brutal. I feel like An Sung-joon would probably not have a great time after this game because he would be feeling very sad because he has played super well in this game, but he still lost, and he lost because of his human intuition. So I find that to be the brutal part of this game. But anyway, Yang Kaiwen won this game, and the next opponent he's going to be playing against Yama Yuta from Japan, which is going to be very exciting. So I will have that commentary out soon, and I hope to see you there. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that commentary when it comes out. All right, I hope to see you all in the next video.